Mình ở trong cái khuôn khổ đó thì mình cũng chỉ trong cái khuôn khổ đó thôi. Tự mặc dù nếu mà mình nói là mình là người Mỹ, người ta thấy mình tóc đen, người ta cũng không có giống như người ta cũng vẫn nghĩ là mình không phải là người Mỹ. Thành tự mình nên duy trì để ví dụ như người ta còn thấy là mặc dù là mình là ở Mỹ nhưng mà mình là gốc của mình đó, mình vẫn nói tiếng đó được.
This came from an interview that we did with Mea, or our mom, and she talked about how we don't inherently fit in because of our appearance, even though we've lived in the United States like all of our lives. However, she still notes how it's important to hold on to our Vietnamese language and our roots as a show for how we are different. In this special episode, we want to honor the 50th anniversary of the fall of Saigon. War didn't just displace our family physically. It rewired how we love, how we hold grief, and how we move about our day-to-day. So today, we're exploring the fragments of the past and how we're moving forward with those pieces.
Welcome to Growing Up Nguyen, a story of 4 siblings holding on to our identity
while fulfilling our parents' dreams.
I'm Hương. I'm Karen Hunt.
I'm Hedda Hugh.
And I'm Ben Huang. These are the blessings and challenges of growing up Nguyen in America.
What did we inherit from the diaspora?
The big question. I'd say a lot of toothpicks.
What?
A lot of toothpicks? What?
Yeah, you know the picks we have at home, the plastic one in primary colors, semi-translucent, kind of like a double-pronged fork in the sword, so we used to eat fruit with.
Yeah, we have 4 left. Huh?
What do you mean we have 4 left? There's a whole pack in the closet.
Wait, what?
Yeah, there's 4 bags of them. Pristine, a little aged, but pristine, clean forks.
Why do we? Well, I have always used them and then washed them and then put them back in the cup. That's why I know there's only 4 left.
Because they're reusable. And then we continue using them. But actually, if we've replaced them, I get at the same time. Every time you wash them, if something happens, we do replace them from
Really?
the pack in the closet.
So you're telling me all this time I've been super careful, super delicate with these forks, and we have packs of them in our closet?
4 of them. Yeah.
I'm
Mea
with Huang
said that.
here.
Oh, okay. I don't know if y'all heard the story, but Mea got them from Bang Wai. When Bang Wai passed away, Mea cleaned Bang Wai's house and found these packs of picks still in their packaging. So she brought them home for us to use. And then where Bang Wai got them, we believe is from when one of our uncles was maybe doing handyman work or cleaning a house and found them. So he brought them home for Bang Wai. Now, do I recall Bang Wai using them? Well, she was alive, so I was at her house. Not really. But they are very handy nowadays.
That's crazy to think that we've had these for 20 plus years? Because before I was born, probably. And we've been using, I don't even know, we maybe got through the first pack of them and we have 4 more and we've still been reusing the same, 5 to 10 lately.
They're
I
precious.
think that's how we grew up, though. Anything that we use very as lightly as possible, and we're very gentle with it. And again, just reused it so that there was not that much waste. And come to think of it, I think it's really related to that scarcity mindset that our family grew up with, in wartime, not knowing when you would be able to get more resources, and therefore a certain resistance to letting go too. Because I remember there was one of those toothpicks, now that you're talking about it, they're 2 prongs, but sometimes we used one that was 1.5. It was just half broken. But we would still use it.
Yeah,
It was still usable. And I think that's what that brings to mind for me, that kind of scarcity mindset, trying to use things as much as possible because you didn't know when there would be more or anything to replace it. I still did not realize until this moment that we had 4 more packs.
Of 20, 50. Yeah, a pack has a bunch of them, by the way. I never thought about the scarcity mindset thing. I was just thinking they were precious. But maybe that is part of the scarcity mindset.
Yeah, I think so. That there's a certain, again, you don't know when you will get another piece. You don't know if there's another toothpick to replace it, and you want to take care of everything as best as possible because it is precious.
That makes me think back to all the interviews we've done with all our aunts and uncles, and even Matt, especially how they talked about what it was like growing up in Vietnam before the fall of Saigon, and then even a little bit after, because some of them had come over to the United States a little bit later than 1975, and it was kind of interesting to see how they all felt the tension that was leading up to the fall of Saigon. A lot of them were really young too, before the adulthood age of 18, and they still felt the uncertainty of what would happen to their well-being and their sense of security. I think what comes to mind first is actually Bakhip, our aunt and our dad's older sister, and she's the oldest of 9 siblings, so very big family. And I actually wanted to play a clip from the interview that Hương did with Bakhip, and she describes the life of what it was like during that time.
Lúc giờ xây lên là mở tiệm tạp hóa chứ không có bán dầu nữa. Thì bà nội làm được mấy năm thôi, bán đi được mấy năm, mà biết tại sao không? 2 năm sau nữa thì là Việt Cộng vô lấy tịch thu, nghĩa là nó chiếm tất cả các cái vùng đó. Mà nếu mà còn á thì cũng không sống được, là bởi vì phải đưa tiền, phải đưa dầu, đưa tiền cho họ thì mới ở yên được, nếu không tức là ban ngày á là của Việt Cộng Hòa, và ban đêm á là cộng sản, thành ra mình phải đóng thuế cho cả hai bên mình mới sống được. Thì mà may mắn á, là bà nội bán trước.
Bakhip is telling us that our grandma, bà nội, operated a store for a few years and then closed it down. And she was lucky in that because a couple years later, the Viet Cong would come into the area and confiscate everything. They took over the whole area. And had she still been running the store, she wouldn't have survived because you had to give the Viet Cong money to stay safe. During the day, you would pay taxes to the Republic of Vietnam, and then you would basically pay a double tax to the Viet Cong in the evening in order to survive. And I can't imagine witnessing that just growing up around you. I think it creates a huge environment of distrust. And it also makes me think of the timing of Bà Nội. Like, how did she know to do that 2 years before the Viet Cong would come in? And just reminds me of the resilience that she had to close down her store, but also be crafty in order to keep going and keep providing for our family.
Yeah, I agreed. She's incredibly adaptable, because Bakhip in that interview was also talking about how Bà Nội, as they traveled from north to south, was that she was starting up her different businesses and then selling it as they kept moving down, starting it up, running it for a few years, and then closing it, and just kept moving on. And to do that in a constantly shifting and unstable environment, I kind of respect her for the fact that she was doing what she had to do, and and to bring to provide enough for her family to survive.
And she was doing it, I don't know how she knew or the timing, but it was in protecting her family, but she moved them to the south. And can you imagine, you've made it this far, and now the Viet Cong are starting to tax your area now too. So they're starting to exert their influences, even as you already had major escape, thinking, we've probably gotten to a safe place, but you didn't, or it didn't become safe anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I think on the other side of this is, I think Bà Nội had a really hyper awareness to her situation. She was moving and shifting, but that's almost like a trauma response, right? Because you always have to be ready and you can't get comfortable. It's like when you break it down, you can't trust any side. You have to keep juggling and continue scanning your environment for danger. Always be ready for the next thing, whatever it might be, right?
Yeah. I mean, she had some strong instincts to survive.
Yeah.
It does make me wonder if this feels like out of a movie, but like if she had, I don't know, spies or informants like telling her what's going on, so then she's like, "Oh, it's time, pack up shop, and I gotta go. I gotta take my family with me." But I mean, still, I think she had like a great, I don't know.
She loved
Just
the family
her own
well. We wouldn't be
survival
here.
instinct.
Yeah, we wouldn't be here without her.
Yeah.
About the decisions she's made. I think her attitude also had a ripple effect, though. I think we know she was a firm person. Yes, resourceful, but very, what's the word? Strict? Yeah. Demanding? Yeah.
Maybe.
Because the other side to hyper-awareness is becoming withdrawn. I mean, you have to be if you're closing shop and going, like I said. Like, you can't get too comfortable. You're always ready and watching for threats. It's kind of, yeah. So I don't know. Like, that's just that piece of it probably kind of trickles down to her kids. We probably have it within us in some ways.
I guess during that time, a lot of people probably developed some kind of like instinct and like resourcefulness, because I see it both in Bakhip and Mea, because they needed it to survive staying a little bit longer in Vietnam, because all of their siblings had went over to the United States first, and they had stayed a couple years after the fall of Saigon, and they needed that instinct to survive both being in Vietnam and even after when they came to the United States. For them, it was a situation of like the Viet Cong would take everything, or they had to leave everything to find a new opportunity. And I will say that probably didn't leave them with a lot, but you know what they did have? Family. And yeah, they had family. They had each other, and they had their siblings and their own skills as well as their family skills and experiences. They worked to survive.
It's helping each other. Like, when you don't have the cash as capital, you give sweat equity. Remember what Kokoi said in his interview? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's what it reminds me of is how Mea made us clothes as kids. She didn't speak the English language, but she was able to put her skills to use, and that's that sweat equity. She was making things by hand. In Vietnam, she did sewing classes to learn a trade, and then in the U.S., when she came, she also continued to take sewing classes and eventually got a job as a tailor. And I always remember she would used to take like leftover cloth from customers to make new clothing for us. And it was kind of like turning something leftover into something new, and that is resourceful in and of itself. And that is something I see in common among the stories that we have from our interviews with our relatives, is there is a sense of an individual and a collective resourcefulness in order to adapt.
Somehow she always had just enough scraps to make like that one piece so it all looked as one. It wasn't ever
you would get a whole set.
Yeah.
A shirt or pants, and maybe a set if we were lucky. and we were lucky. It was tailored to us. It fit what it needed. Us.
Mm-hmm.
Metaphor for life, always adapting, shaping, and remaking.
Yeah.
I had mentioned about like taking just enough, and how Mea just had like used those scraps and just turned it into something new. Mm-hmm. And it made me think of another story that she had actually told us in her interview. I think it was a story about Hương and Han going in the Toys R Us. Here, let me play it for y'all.
Kỷ niệm thì nó cũng nhiều kỷ niệm, nhưng mà có một cái đặc biệt đó là mấy chị hồi xưa lúc mà Hương với Hạnh còn nhỏ đó, chừng khoảng cỡ cỡ 1 tuổi hay 2 tuổi gì đó là mày nhớ là dẫn hay đi mua tả ở Toys R Us đi ra đó, xong cái hồi mẹ thì ở đó nó có nhiều đồ chơi, thành thử ra để đứng đó cho Hương Hạnh chơi xong hỏi tự nhiên cái bà Mỹ bà lại bà nói với mẹ chứ: ủa ở nhà mày dạy con mày sao mà tao thấy là nó chơi cái nào nó chơi xong rồi nó không thích nữa thì nó đem lên nó lại để trên kệ nó cất tiếp, mà tao thấy mấy đứa trẻ kia nó chơi xong nó cứ vất đầy đó. Biểu không cái ở nhà tao thì tắm tỏng vậy, tao xong rồi cái gì đó là tao dọn cái đó, thành thử ra chắc có lẽ nó nhìn thấy vậy, nhưng thành thử ra mẹ thấy là giống như là mấy chị em cũng nhanh và hiểu là mà ngăn nắp.
She had taken me and Hatton to Toys R Us. We were about 1 to 2 years old. We were going to the store to buy diapers. And at the store, Hatton and I were playing with some toys and then put it back on a shelf. An American customer that was in the store commented that, or asked my mom, how do you teach your children that when they finish playing with something, they put it back on the shelf in the stores? I just see other kids just leave everything around after playing. Now, I don't recall doing that, so I don't know how that was.
You were like
Yeah.
2 years old.
I was still in
Explain
diapers.
yourself.
I was still in diapers. I think I knew that we couldn't always afford the toys, so, put it back. I knew it was just for that moment. I can enjoy it, look at it, admire it, do little oogly eyes, dream about, fantasize what it could look like in my room or what I could be doing with this toy, and then put it back on the shelf.
All that at 2 years old, huh?
Okay, maybe not.
I
It
know,
wasn't in that moment.
She was big brain. I think what stuck out to me listening to Maya say this was how this almost innocent situation is kind of a reflection of probably some of the things that we were talking about, especially earlier about not getting too comfortable. I mean, for me, I was just thinking that it seemed like you were allowed to have that moment where you got to play with it, you got to have a little fun, but at the end of it, you put it back because it's not yours, or there's something you inherently felt or knew that you could not hold on to it for much longer. Maybe you had to guard yourself, or maybe there's I guess I don't know, another reason why we didn't hold on to things. We just knew that we had to let go.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it goes back to what I said about hypervigilance, because when that happens, there's a little bit of emotional safeguarding. You don't put yourself out there. You hide your vulnerabilities. So I can see how that sense can kind of be trickled down to us.
I'm also seeing the sense of don't take more than you need, which is also that scarcity mindset that I was bringing in earlier, where it was like, you can have the toys for right now, but you don't need it. We're not going to bring it home with us. What we do need are the diapers that we came here to the store for.
Growing up, we didn't always talk about these things. I mean, the things that our family had lost, all the loss, the things that they had to give up. But we definitely felt it for sure. The way that we saved the pics, the
way I put the toys back innately,
way that you put the toys back.
Instinctively.
Yeah, it's just there's some instinct that we kind of inherited from them.
Yeah. I think they're just the survival mechanisms. Those are habits and survival mechanisms that our mom shared with us, for better or for worse. I think our dad in some ways, but I think one thing that our dad also contributed that I want to bring in, because Becky had mentioned this in her interview, was his curiosity and his drive to learn. What'd she say? She said that he believed like learning continuously was important to fighting for yourself. So
that's what life is about.
Yeah. So I guess we have this two framework. We have our mother's survival mechanisms and maybe our dad's, I'm going to call it like a thrive mentality or a thrive framework. We have both that we get to balance and learn as we navigate life. It's important to name it so you know that it's there.
Yeah. I was like, wow, that's an interesting foundation. It's like forward thinking, but also like the past instincts that we've had to build on and like use in our daily life. So honestly, that kind of leads me to this next question of like, how do we see everyone's like responses and mannerisms? How does it show up in the way that they raised us?
Let me think about it. I think what we picked up was a lot of saving of plastic forks, which we already talked about. Plastic bags, plastic containers, plastic hair clips, plastic slippers from Vietnam. Actually, they were quite novelty, like those clips and the slippers, because those designs weren't here yet in the United States. Do you remember? Like this other one that was stretchy and it could wrap around your ponytail. Or maybe I just never saw it, so I thought it was like, oh my gosh. It was so cool. And different slippers for the home or outside that were more, cutesy and artsy in a different style. It was just a different style. Obviously, that also meant there was two things. Like, yeah, it was like novelty to have these Vietnamese things when I went to Vietnam and she brought them home. It was special. It felt like connected to Vietnamese culture or Vietnamese designs in some way. And on the other side, I felt like I just wanted that Backstreet Boy CD or the NSYNC album. And we couldn't get that. Yeah. Yeah. Like, what would really make me fit in? Not those hair clips. But I still
don't know.
them.
Maybe they could have been like what is it called? A fad. It could have been so fetch during those school years.
Unfortunately, I was not cool enough to make fetch a thing. Yeah. Okay. But that's just to say that the thing that comes to mind is that it was really hard to fit in the Vietnamese community in America, like here, I think of Việt ngữ is the first place because, first of all, not many kids were going to Việt ngữ. Well, obviously, we're Vietnamese. And then within that, not other Vietnamese kids were going. There were a few of us. Hatton and I went on Saturdays from 9 to 1. So we had 6 days of school a week, with one day being completely in Vietnamese for almost like a full day. I mean, 9 to 1 feels like a full day. And we lined up. That was my favorite part. We used to line up, sing the song, and then we went to class. It just felt very welcoming because there was a structure to it. Obviously, we lined up, we sang the song. It's like you knew what you were going to do, and then they also had regular celebrations. We did the Lunar New Year, the Mid-Autumn Moon Festival, Tết Nguyên đán, and the Tết Trung Thu. So we were really immersed in our Vietnamese community at that time.
We had graduations too.
The graduations, like they were real. Like you were going from grade to grade. I just felt like there was advancing in the language. So there was incentive to be better in the language in some way.
I was just really thinking because I don't remember lining up and singing the anthem like you, but actually, I think our school did that too. The one that I went to did it too. It's just that I was never on time. Yeah, because there's only been one day when I went to Việt ngữ on time and was able to line up and know what that process was. Otherwise, it was me running to the courtyard and being like, oh crap, they're all walking into the classroom. I gotta go find my class or else I don't know what room they'll be in, because I don't think I was familiar with the geography of the whole place. Also because I don't think they followed the signs of which grade was supposed to be in which grade. I was always concerned that I would be going into the wrong class.
Because you couldn't recognize your classmates?
Yeah, maybe I had some I don't know, I didn't have facial recognition during that time, because I think every time I would walk in, I'd be like, I don't know if these people are in my class. I don't know if I'm in the right place. Yeah, that is a really disconnected Việt ngữ experience. But I will say ours was structured a little bit differently because I had Việt ngữ, which is the language piece. And then after that was Giáo lý, which is the equivalent of Bible study. And so, but that was also in Vietnamese, so I guess it was still language learning while also
Learning religious
learning
studies.
Bible, yeah.
And then I don't think I ever went, but but a lot of the students after Yaoli would go to church after because it was next to a church. And I guess it would still be a similar day, 9 to 1. Or maybe, well, you know what? Actually, it's St. Anthony, so it's probably longer. So it's like, maybe we could do like 9 to like 2.
What do you mean?
I'm just trying to tell you about how long that whole day was if you had to go to Viet Ngữ on Sunday. That's like your whole day gone.
You're saying that's how you felt.
Yeah, and I didn't even go to church, and I still felt like my whole day was gone. I didn't go to that church. I went to a different church.
So do you feel like you were more like disconnected from the other students because you also, one, you showed up late to class, and then two, you didn't join them for the last activity, which was like the St. Anthony's Mass?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, thinking about Hung's description of how Viet Ngữ was for her, I don't remember ever attending their like Tết Trung Thu, Tết Nguyên Đán, even graduations, really. I think the only time I attended a graduation was because I got or I guess it would be the award ceremony, not necessarily graduation, but I only attended because I was getting an award. Otherwise, I don't remember attending at all.
Oh, that's odd.
But maybe it says something about, I don't know. I was thinking that maybe Meow was really lax on me and my attendance because I'm just like, I just don't remember any of these events. I don't remember, I guess, maybe having more opportunities to bond with my peers.
I got an award every year. So I was always at a ceremony at the end of the year.
And this is why it was so hard to fill in after my sister's shoes. After they all went to college, and then it was just me, and then I'm like, oh God, how am I supposed to live life if I can't get an award every year?
Well, I will say, I don't think Mo was very lax with me, at least for Vietnamese school. I remember standing in line to sing the
anthem.
To sing the anthem. And I started crying because I wanted to go home because I knew that year I would get bullied again. And like I told Mo I didn't want to go to Vietnamese school, which like to some degree I knew that he wasn't gonna let me not go, but I just knew that it was gonna be like a horrible school year of like Saturday mornings constantly being bullied by this girl named Nancy, and it was like about one, I would wear like the same sweatshirt every week. That's just how I dressed back then. It was just the same blue sweatshirt, hoodie. And then two, like I would be good at Vietnamese. And so she would make fun of me for that in the whole class and be like, oh, look at her like teacher's pet because she can answer all the questions and stuff. And it was like, no, it's one of those moments when the teacher asks a question and then there's cricket silence from the entire class. And then I'm like, let me just answer this so we can keep moving forward. But apparently that means that nobody else was paying attention in Vietnamese class to answer the question, maybe?
I don't think it's very possible. I don't think, or yeah, it's like either they didn't know a lot of Vietnamese or they weren't paying attention. Hard to say.
Hard to say.
Or you were just too smart, yo.
You're too
smart.
He was like, let's get the day going, yo.
But I mean, all of that to say, I feel like that discouraged me from learning more Vietnamese because it wasn't like a cool thing to do.
Yeah, that sucks to have that experience where you don't feel safe to just be you, like the smart you that you are, and clearly it has an impact on how you approach Vietnamese. It sounds like, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I think like it's a weird thing in my mind, because I want to be Vietnamese and I want to learn the language and I want to understand my culture, and I feel like we got that experience by going to Viet Ngữ. But to me, it was just such a horrible experience of exclusion all the time, because when I would be there, the environment was this girl, Nancy, bullying me. And if she wasn't there, then it would just be bystanders who didn't talk to me because I was associated with not being cool. So I really had no like social community at Viet Ngữ, which is what sucked.
That is hard because it's like we're already, I mean, you're being an outsider. That's what it is, right? Being an outsider and just looking for community, for connection, and you're not getting that. I think what's different for you and me is because obviously you're way younger than Hatton and me, is like Hatton and I were in the same class for a while. So I guess I always had Hatton in my class. Were we cool? I cannot say that we were. But I guess in the difference is that little aspect where just because I knew someone in class, and that just made a slight difference in some way for me.
Yeah. I was thinking of how it kind of paralleled with Baekhyup's kind of story of like how you can't when there's a community that you can't necessarily like trust, you kind of stand out less, or it puts a little bit of a damper in your experience. What all this made me think about is actually Go Kwa's story. Actually, both Go Kwa and Go Koi, who are our uncles on Ma's side and her younger brothers. And I think about, well, they came over to the United States when they were around between 5 and 7 years old.
Yeah, I'd say
compared to Ma and Baekhyup, who had come when they were a lot older, in their like 20s. And I think it was interesting to hear about how their like relationship with language and like language preservation was similar and different in certain ways. I think Kokwa had kind of described it once they had come to the United States, which is also surprising because they stopped in the East Coast. They didn't actually go to SF or Oakland yet. I think it was it Pennsylvania? Mm-hmm. And well, I don't know how big the Viet community is over there, or maybe just during that time. But I think Kokwa had kind of laid out what learning Vietnamese was like, and also what learning English was like.
Well, when I immigrated at 7 years old, at that time I think I could still read Vietnamese, and I had a hard time learning English. And I remember reading the Bible in Vietnamese or something like that, and so forth. But later on, when I started picking up English, then I just lost the Vietnamese real quick. Between 7 to 10 years old, you don't get exposure to the language, and then you just lose it right there. We came into the East Coast, Pennsylvania, for like 2 or 3 years before we came back to California. Well, not back, before we migrated back to California. So we got cut off from the culture, cut off from everything. I remember when we lived over in Pennsylvania, it was very cold, and it was more like a suburban neighborhood. So it was like a different world, you know. A lot of people speak English and so forth. So
obviously at that time, there was no Viet Ngữ for him to preserve the Vietnamese. But it's very admirable that he picked up the Bible and tried to continue learning. Obviously, that's pretty smart to do that, like around 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I know, because the Bible isn't always straightforward. It's all these stories, and you're supposed to interpret it. So to be able to read it in Vietnamese, well, I mean, I guess you can read and not understand, but I just assume that you know, there's a lot of complexity going on in that one.
But to be very disciplined and trying to learn or maintain some connection to language that way, that's wow. Uncle's kind of smart. at that age. I just
Well,
never
I
put that
think-
into perspective. Yeah.
I think it's an interesting moment of connection too, because I think another thing about being Vietnamese, and whether that is you are in a certain city or state, another thing that brings Vietnamese communities together is religion. And he
that's right.
used the Bible to connect to other Vietnamese Catholics.
And that's true. Like our Viet Ngữ were on church grounds. The one that Hugh, Hatton, and I went to is at St. Mary's, and Huang's was St. Anthony's. We didn't have Yao Li, but obviously it was still church grounds. And the churches were like they are community centers for different cultures. So I think it's just so important to have that. You know, we are Vietnamese Americans. Obviously, our uncles are also Vietnamese Americans coming over here a little bit younger, but we're both grasping to maintain our Vietnamese language, but we're also have the privilege and ability to experience a lot of Vietnamese customs here. Like we're doing Lunar New Year together, sometimes the Mid-Autumn Moon Festival, and then we have our religious holidays like Easter's and Christmas. So but at the same time, even as you're trying to celebrate these things, there's these moments. Like he talked about the bullying in Viet Ngữ, or Go Hoa coming here not yet having Viet Ngữ and trying to maintain his language, and us growing up with the elders kind of having criticism about how we're speaking. There's a lot of anxiety, exclusion, and judgment. The question is like, what does it mean to be Vietnamese, or how do you be Vietnamese when you're living in America? Yeah, I'd say we're pretty grateful that we're here, but
we've lived a life.
we lived a life. But there's at the same time a lot of restraint, like in the same way y'all were talking about VSA, right? There's something that's holding you back in some way. So maybe we don't always dig so deeply, and that's why we do this podcast to help us get a little deeper into the surface as we figure out these transition and navigating life. One thing that sticks out to me is one of Ma's friends' son, Ma's friend's son had an engagement party, and he was in his late 20s at that time, and I was also in my late 20s. So basically we're peers, right? Like, but I didn't really know him. But I went with my mom because Ma needed a guest. And Huang, you've gone to different weddings.
Yeah,
and maybe
yeah,
you can share how you feel these experiences too. So it's like, I'm young enough to be part of those young adults. They're over there doing their shots and fist pumps. But at the same time, I felt more comfortable with the boomer Vietnamese, like, right? Like with the group doing chatting in some Vietnamese and just hearing their stories and what their life was like. So I don't know. I guess in some ways I'm still navigating it, like even in my 20s and 30s.
Yeah, I agree. I think, well, I also had a recent event where I was with the Vietnamese choir, and we were doing a little picnic celebration. And I feel like this is common to have this split between the adults and like the children.
Mm-hmm.
And I've definitely seen it growing up, but what feels so new about it now is that I'm older, and technically I'm not a child. Like I am
You're
my mom's
unharmed.
child, but no, don't say that.
Do it.
I'm an am, okay. But it's weird being a lot older now, because the kids that I would have hung out with are, well, they're not exactly my age. They're about to be in college, and actually some of them are a little bit younger.
That's only like 5 years younger than you. Or 6.
Yeah,
7.
but I was gone for college, okay? So I'm like, there's a 4-year gap of me not knowing them.
Okay.
Fair.
Okay.
College changes you, huh?
Yeah. But I find myself at this weird crossroad of, do I hang out with the kids section, and then am I supposed to speak English or Vietnamese with them? Or do I go to the adults table where it's definitely just going to be straight up Vietnamese? But do I fit in there yet? Because they've known me all my life as somebody who was a kid. Yeah, exactly. As a kid and didn't speak Vietnamese much. And I think it's kind of a little bit challenging to figure out which side I'm supposed to be on.
It's a little negotiation of like Vietnamese American, Vietnamese American, Vietnamese
Yeah.
American.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, as we're talking about it, we realize it's that negotiation, or what's another word? Maybe just being Vietnamese American was new to our parents because they were coming here as Vietnamese, but learning and growing up in America, their new homeland. And then for us, being born here with Vietnamese cultural roots, it's always this push and pull of both sides. Like, how do you balance that? And I think for us, the reason why we're doing this podcast and the reason we talk about these things is we're trying to figure out, how do we carry our family's culture and legacy while adapting and living in our home country? Like, are we doing enough to honor our family's legacy?
I would say having a peaceful mind, not a peaceful mind, but I would say, our society has a lot of stimulants out there that would create a lot of anxiety and a lot of turmoil and distress, those kind of stuff, man. But those finding peace within yourself, it's a very broad term, peace, within yourself. It's very elusive, but it's achievable. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know what I expected Gokoi to say, but it wasn't that. I think so many people will say something like, I just want my kids to be happy. And it's a much more, I guess it's so blasé to say that. And the fact that he said something so simple and yet also hard to capture for oneself, it makes me think about all that he's gone through in life and the wisdom that he has to pass on, that what he wants is peace, or wants for us is peace. And I've been learning more about peace through learning meditation this year, and sometimes it feels fleeting and it feels hard to find that within yourself, and still I think it's a really cool thing that that's what he wants to pass on to us. And I think it's also, like, in light of us doing this episode as the anniversary of the end of the Vietnam War, very fitting, like, as a topic.
Yeah, I'll add on that it was surprising for me because it was almost a acknowledgement of how the past and the history is kind of like showing up in our day-to-day. Like, I guess all our different communities and societies are like stressful to us, but I guess it's almost, to me, he's almost saying that, like, finding peace is a way of recognizing that, and yet choosing to move forward. I don't know why it's so, like, powerful, this, like, turning something hidden into something more seen and more, like, something that you can choose.
I think it also just says something about time. Like you said, this is 50 years since the fall of Saigon. Like, 50 years later, we want peace. We didn't want peace then. I'm kidding. But that internal, but it's just really hard to have that internal peace, right? I think one way to figure out how to move forward and navigate that turbulence, and we tried to do it with each other, right? We started this podcast after Bo died, but we realized we still needed help, and we were fortunate to tap into therapy as a tool to help us navigate those difficult conversations with each other and better stand those emotionals that we're having. One of the things we did at the start of therapy, and I found really significant for me, was the genealogy tree. That really helped me understand the different relationships we have with each other and our parents, our aunts and uncles, but most importantly, the losses that we've experienced. Because I always thought of loss as, like, loss of a person. Like I always think Nguyen's death was, most impactful, but clearly it is.
Yeah.
But it's also the estrangement. Like, the relationships you don't have, even if the person's present.
I know. Damn, Hung. Really, really hit the heart there. No, I agree. It's kind of it's a lot to think about and a lot to hold. I For me, I think the genealogy chart really showcased the different types of relationships that we probably all saw between our parents and their siblings and even their grandparents. And those became examples or references for how we treat our relationships today, right? And it's kind of scary to think about, because then the habits that they used kind of got translated to us. But I will say, I think the, I guess, comforting thing is that because we are talking about it and we're thinking about it, it kind of, it leaves us with the question of like, do I keep doing it that way? Is there, maybe there's a different path that we get to choose now that we know.
Most definitely. How are you doing, Hung?
Good. Thank you.
I think it's really heavy doing the work of exploring the past sometimes. And being able to explore it through therapy is a gift and also a challenge. There's a lot that you end up unpacking, so I can feel those heavy emotions too. For me, I've explored therapy through system-centered therapy. It's something that I started getting into maybe around 2 or 3 years ago now. And I really enjoy that modality because it looks at therapy not just from an individual standpoint, but from a group standpoint as well. And there's kind of 3 layers to it, I would say. There's one, the individual, of how you develop your own inner person system. Another level is the interpersonal, so how I am in relationship to, let's say, me and Hung or me and Hoang, and the group system or the family system. And that's all of us as a whole, whether that's 3 of us here or our larger family system. And we want to think about, in system-centered therapy, the different systems that we're a part of, because it takes away just individual blame and just focusing on what the individual like needs are, but also understanding like the system as a whole and how it's shaped our family system as a whole, which is shaped by war, by grief, and survival. And when we think about the different layers that there are in the system, it's important to recognize too that you as an individual influence each part of the system that you're in. So yes, like when you focus on the individual, you're changing yourself. And also when you are working in the interpersonal system with another person or the group as a whole, you get to impact and influence that dynamic as well. So I think that is really important in helping people see how they want to create the future that they want. How do I want to create the future that I want? And I think that's part of the work that is so heartwarming for me, because I think we've been able to really open up our family system and hear the different stories that we might not have heard otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I kind of was curious, having you've been working through the system-centered therapy yourself, was there a shift that you found for yourself that, you felt like had, the shift that you had to make something different?
I think the idea of you're responsible for what you don't bring to the group is something that is very present for me, because I think oftentimes for me growing up, like in our sibling dynamic of 4, it's very easy to just like go along with the flow. And that doesn't always take into account how each individual person is feeling. And at the same time, like, you wouldn't know what I'm feeling if I didn't bring it to the table. And so the important thing is that you do bring your voice to the table, because once it's out there, then the entire group's responsibility as a system is to take in that feedback, and then we work together to move forward. I guess with that, how do you see yourself influencing the systems that you're a part of?
I would say it's through probably going out and just giving space for our relatives to talk about their stories. I like thinking back to when Hung and I went to Vegas to go record Go Young's story. I didn't realize how much I didn't know about his life. And he also had mentioned how him and I weren't very close, because I think around the time that I was born, he just wasn't around as much as often. And then eventually he moved a couple years later after I was born. So we just didn't spend that much time together in general. But being able to hear his stories of being like 18 in Vietnam around the fall of Saigon, and trying to hold his memories with like compassion and honor, I would hope creates a kind of ripple effect that he himself is like finding peace with what happened in his past, while also giving me more clarity on how his survival led to maybe like how I treat my relationships today. Even though we're not that connected, I'm sure as a child I must have seen something. I might not remember it, but I'm sure maybe there's some habits that are instilled. But I think doing the work of recording and learning about all these memories is one of the ways that I and we all are influencing systems. Actually, doing this podcast is another influence. We are sharing these stories, our experiences and our family's experiences with a wider audience, with a community, and hopefully bringing some kind of impact that people can like share in the feelings, or maybe find it interesting that there's a different type of perspective that they hadn't heard about before.
Mm-hmm.
Look at you learning systems, Wang.
You're already impacting us. Well, you've been impacting us.
Yeah.
It happened just now.
No. And that's how therapy works. Instant relief.
It takes time, yeah. I think one of the things you said, Huang, was compassion, but for Go Young. And that's just so key, like compassion for what has happened, compassion for who you are now, and then learning to create into our new shared experience, our own unique experience, and then our shared experiences together. Mm-hmm. Even though I described it that way, I believe the questions I asked our aunts and uncles around what parts of Vietnamese cultures do they think we should bring forward, and in that sense, they're like the good parts of it, the beneficial parts, the parts that are true to you, is what I'm trying to say.
So not the bad parts.
No, just the parts
what bad parts are there? What bad parts are there, huh?
What parts do you feel like you're taking with you to work towards that peace that Khoi was talking about?
I think I find it in how I'm entering more and more art spaces. For some reason this year, I've had this phrase of like letting go of just fine paths, where it's like instead of choosing the comfortable path, maybe I'm choosing something that's a little bit more uncomfortable, but I feel like there's a, I don't know, bigger reward at the end of the tunnel or something. I see it in the way that I kind of like, I mean, right now I'm working, but in a little bit I'm choosing to go to grad school, going to Columbia for social work. And that was quite an uncomfortable decision, because I was like, well, I have a job and I could be working here and just making money, But I think in terms of like my long-term goals, it's not something that like I wanted to be doing for a while. And so instead just choosing something that felt more geared towards like my long-term like joy and fulfillment was something that was important to me. And I guess maybe hopefully is giving me like more peace in my life. I think another thing is, I think I said it earlier, entering more art spaces. I went to CAMFest in the Bay Area like a couple months ago, which is, I think CAM stands for Center for Asian American Media. And I got to see a film called Year of the Cat by Tony Nguyen. And he's a filmmaker that's living in Oakland. So that was really cool. I was like, wow, someone in the Bay made a film and I get to see it here. And it was really awesome to just see his storytelling and his own experiences. I didn't relate to it 100% because he was talking about like growing up without a father. I reached that a lot later in life, but so not completely similar. But I think there were some similarities in trying to confront parents about the past and trying to learn more about your history. That's something that we really that I shared in his film. And actually looking forward more. There's a Viet Film Fest. Even though that's in LA and I don't think I'll be able to go, they have option to see it online. And it'll be in October. And I'm really excited about it because it's, well, specifically a dedicated Viet Film Fest. And so I get to see a lot of stories by Vietnamese people, by Vietnamese Americans, and maybe more beyond that. And like to be able to see how people are sharing their stories and what pieces I can take from it, or maybe are there any new things that I can learn from it that I want to add to my own experience. And I guess, yeah, well, what will bring me the most joy and fulfillment?
That's an important question. And it's great to see you really connect with the community and like find yourself through these, or not find yourself, but find or have these options for you. Connection. Yeah, I like that. When you said peace, immediately the thing that came to mind was peacemaker. And I was like, I need to stop doing that. I feel like that's the role I've played. Finding my peace is stopping peacemaker. Stop the ways in which those old roles in which I've been participating to navigate siblings or siblings and parents, sometimes even our parents and our relatives in some ways. So for me, it's been a lot of really getting to know myself. For me, those moments mean perhaps traveling. I think that relates to our dad. He did a lot of that, and to me, I feel like connected to Bo, like you said, Hoang. Like, well, I guess you just mentioned Bo passing away, but for how we connect, and for me, connecting to Bo, connecting to myself, is like a lot through travel and learning through that way. I also like to garden. It's it's something that our grandma used to do, Bo used to do, so it helps me integrate the past and present, and that's how I'm kind of working to find my connections for me.
For me, I thought about what Bo too, and for me, like I think of how Bo went swimming all the time, and I feel like I've been finding peace in doing physical training and also personal training and being able to like give back to other people and help them with their health. I think that has been something that has been feeling for me very fulfilling, and it's shaping the future that I want to continue to help people the way that I feel like Bo always had a very giving nature of wanting to like give back to the community as well.
I wanted to add on for our listeners that you might have noticed that Hatton's not in this podcast episode. And she's still around. Don't worry. She's just working on her own art projects, and so she decided to step back from this episode. But we would love if you guys can show her some support and follow her and see what she's been up to on her Instagram at Karen Hunt.
As we close out this episode, we continue to think about how the Vietnam War has impacted our life today. We've learned about our aunts and uncles and what being in Vietnam was like for them, and how challenging it's been to transition from their homeland to a new country. So our work now is taking what they shared and seeing how we can build it.
Build it differently with the toothpicks.
Oh, not the toothpicks again.
You know what I mean? Just the toothpicks, the picks. Yeah. Okay, this is what I mean. It's like we took out the toothpicks. They've been preserved for so long, and it's time to unpackage them and the habits that came with them. Mainly those survival mechanisms we talked about: the scarcity mindset, hyper awareness, communication styles, restraint, maybe even certain dynamics that were held in those old roles, right? And now as we take out those toothpicks, we can start to uncover them and start to create something that fits us now.
Yeah.
And work towards the peace that Gokoi said.
Yeah. I mean, I'll also add on that, like, our parents, our grandparents, our relatives were impacted by this, I guess, external facing war, but it created an internal war within themselves, all these survival mechanisms, right? And as they transitioned to the United States, a lot of it was passed on to us as the next generation. But as we're learning from therapy, like, we don't have to carry that forward. We instead maybe can choose peace. We're resolving that internal war with inside of us. The way that we express ourselves is a way for us to connect to not only ourselves, but our family, our relatives, and, you know, our larger community, our podcast listeners, if you will. If we doing the podcast is us finding connection or trying to find connection, and at the same time finding a sense of satisfaction and fulfillment. It's all what Gokoi said. Finding peace within yourself, it's elusive, but it's achievable.
Thanks for listening to our podcast, Growing Up Nguyen. We'd love to hear what you think about our episode today, so please reach out to us through our website at www.growingupnguyen.com or follow us on Instagram at growing.up.nguyen. If you like this episode, please share it with a friend. We're Hương, Han, Hiếu, and Hoàng, and this is Growing Up Nguyen.